Welcome, welcome. I'm so glad that you could join us today. This is something new that we're trying, and we are doing a little workshop for you all today. It's an opportunity for us to take an idea and really grapple with it. And this is a preview for maybe stuff to come in 2023 for Bujo U. Today, we have a workshop that asks you to engage, asks you to participate in some different ways. So be on the lookout for that as we go through. And as the energy picks up toward January and the idea of setting goals and resolutions, I know that I'm really, really stretched right now and really busy. But to take a second and maybe even write at the top of your notes page today what it is that you want to be getting from today's time. What are the kinds of feelings or ideas or actions that you want to take from today's time? And then I invite you to take the biggest breaths that you've taken all day. And we'll pass it over to Ryder. Feel free to comment in the chat. There's so many great people in this room, and you can DM me personally, and we will have time at the end for some questions. The replay will be available until the end of the year. Since it's kind of in a beta form, so catch that until December 31st. But otherwise, Ryder, do you want to walk us through about goal setting?
Yes. Thanks, Jessica. First of all, let me thank everyone for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Now, as the year closes, all the craziness begins, and a lot of it has to deal with goals. So I wanted to share some thoughts about goals that have occurred to me in hopes that they will be helpful. I know that some of these realizations were hard won for me, and I wish that I had somebody present these kind of ideas to me back then. So hopefully they're valuable to you as well. And you'll have to forgive me, I'm a little bit under the weather. So if I cough, that's what's going on. Now, there's a lot of concepts here. So I'm going to go through a slide deck. We're going to have questions at the end. And as Jessica mentioned, we have some participation as well. And I really invite you all to participate because your thoughts might inspire other people, right? And that's really what we're here to do, to inspire each other. It's a big part about goals. Okay. Let me bring this up. Okay. So there we go. The agenda for today is to kind of talk about what goals are, the anatomy of goals, what meaningful goals are, and how to build a lighthouse. What does that mean? Some of you might have an idea, but if you don't worry, we'll get to that. All you will need today is pen and paper and an intention. So my intention is to show you how to set meaningful goals. And as Jessica invited you to, maybe you can think about what your intention is for this workshop. What do you want to take away? I find that intentions are really helpful to help us focus on what we're hearing. Okay, so what is a goal? I think if I'm going to give a workshop on goals, it's only fair that I tell you what my definition of a goal is, just so we can orient around that. So my definition of a goal is it's a definition of an outcome. That's what a goal is. It's a definition of an outcome. And I feel like because there are many different types of definitions of what a goal is, it can start to create some of the problems that we encounter with goal setting. So you can think of the outcome as like the delineation between where you are and where you want to be, right? There's a point in time where you reach your goal, the place where you want to be. I think it would be helpful to frame my thinking around goals around one of my own personal experiences around one of the biggest goals that I ever set for myself. Back before I did Bullet Journal full time, I was a digital product designer that some of you may or may not know. And I had reached a point in my career where I had actually hit kind of a high point. I was a digital art director for one of the leading fashion companies in America. It was a really cool job to have for somebody my age. And I had worked up to that. I had been, a designer, a senior designer, an art director. And then all of a sudden I became creative director of the digital space. And goal after goal after goal, something felt like it was missing. Like every time I got to where I thought I wanted to be, I just didn't feel that way. It kind of felt empty. And in my space with digital product designers, the common story is that you'll only be truly happy once you create your own product, right? Something that allows you to be your own boss. It allows you to invest into something that will help you succeed and not another company succeed. Something where you don't have to constantly take designs that you're really proud of and destroy them for somebody else because of their opinion and so forth and so on. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to create my own company. That is what's going to finally fill this void inside me. And so I found another person who was a programmer. Actually, I should say he found me, and together we decided to create this company called Paint-A-Pic. Now, quick background on Paint-A-Pic. It is a paint by numbers product. So for those of you who know paint by numbers, essentially it's a map and it has all these numbers on it. And then you take ink and you put it in, or paint, and you put it into these cells and it creates an image. The difference is that we had like paint by numbers 2.0, which meant that you could send us your photo, and then using our technology, we actually created paints that were perfectly suited for your painting. We sent paintbrushes, the canvas, everything. It was a really delightful product. And we put 2 years of work into this product every night. This was an addition to our job. So we would work 9 to 7 and then go to work again from 7 to 9, 7 to 10, and weekends, holidays for 2 years. Like, slept under the tables, all these things to finally reach a point where we could launch Paint-A-Pic. And from day one, it was a success. It was a success. We quickly made our money back, right? Everything worked. And as part of that launch, I actually ordered our own product. I uploaded a picture of my then dog, this little cute pug, as a way to remember this moment. I thought it'd be fun just to kind of start this next chapter of my life, filling out my own product. So I ordered the product, and it came a couple days later as expected. And there was in the tube with the logo that I had designed, with the inks that I had designed, with the paintbrush, like from head to toe, I knew every inch of this tube and everything inside of it. And from the time I went from the post box to my flat, like my attention was just somewhere else. I kind of tossed it aside until this day. That painting was never painted. And that was just the beginning. It was a strange disconnect because I realized I'm like, I'm not in the mood for that. And then I'm not in the mood for that turned into like, I'm not really in the mood to be in this office. Like, I don't want to be here right now. And after 2 years of work, within 1 week, it went from everything I wanted to be to feeling like I didn't want this at all. I felt empty. I got everything that I wanted, and it didn't change the way that I felt at all. It was a lot of fun to work on. It was a lot of fun to get to this point. But as soon as I reached my goal, it was over. And the strange part was that my partner felt exactly the same way. So we went we went from launching it to deciding to sell it to selling it within a month after 2 years of work. We often hear about people not accomplishing their goals and all these disappointments. But to me, it was such a surprise to reach your goal and be really disappointed. And I'm curious, am I on my own with this? I'd love to hear from you. Let's get the whiteboard up here. I'd love to see what other people have felt after accomplishing their goals, maybe negative emotions, surprises. Empty. Feel free. Get a post-it note. Disappointed. unsatisfied, wanting more. Clarity dissolved. Yeah. Got some positives. The next thing, moving on. Okay. Interesting, right? We talk about completing a goal, and that in itself, it's like, okay, I did what I was supposed to do, and now I got this thing. And as you can see, it's doesn't live up to what we expect often. And that's surprising. I don't know about you, but it's not something that I was brought up with, right? Like a goal is an equation. I do X, I get Y. But instead, we get emptiness, we get feelings of disappointment. And that's exactly where I was as well. That's where I found myself after accomplishing one of the biggest goals that I'd ever set for myself. So, why is that? Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Thank you all for sharing. I'm going to hold on to this. Okay. Okay. So let's take a look at the anatomy of goals. And I want to say more traditional goals, the kind of goals that I was setting during the days of Paint to Pick. A lot of them are extrinsically motivated, right? They come from the outside in. They're awards, fortune, love, fame, status, admiration, all these external things that we want. And sometimes those can take physical form as well, a house, a car, that kind of thing. So you get that thing and it marks the end, right? Success equals reaching that destination, getting that car, getting 50,000 followers, getting the six pack, getting a partner. That's the end of it. That's very specific. Everything else is failure. So you are where you are today, and then you want to get that thing. That's success. That's the goal. That's the destination. And that's where the problems begin. Because all of the focus, the entire energy and thrust of the goal is based on the end destination, getting that thing, getting that person, getting that career, getting that amount of money. The problem is that it's also the furthest thing from our control, right? We can't control the future. There's no way for us to control the future. We can only control the present. The future is the furthest point from our control. The future is also the furthest thing from our understanding, right? Most of our goals are set based on things that we want, that we haven't experienced, that we don't have. So our ability to understand that reality in which we have that thing, in which we've gotten that thing, is low. Reality is now what we have experienced. Then we have the fantasy, this thing that we want, which is what we haven't experienced, what we want to experience. So when we set our goal, we're at the furthest point from reality, our furthest point from understanding what it's like to have that thing, which leads to this thing called the arrival fallacy. This is often true. This is what we just saw in the whiteboard exercise. As we transition from where we are to where we want to be, reality begins to set in, right? And there's a gap almost inevitably between what happens and what we thought would happen, what we wanted to happen. This is a common term. You can look it up, the arrival fallacy. And essentially in this reality gap, like sometimes you accomplish a goal and you feel much better than you thought you would. But I almost guarantee that you don't feel exactly the way that you thought you would. Maybe it's better. Maybe it's worse, but it's different. And that difference can cause a lot of dissonance. It can cause a lot of confusion. It can cause a lot of disappointment. It can cause relief that you don't have to do this anymore. All these things we just saw in the whiteboard incident, these are regular occurrences, and this is what I believe is responsible for that. Also, planning this way limits our success, right? We're limiting our success to something we can't control and that we don't understand. It's this point in time that we set based on an incredible amount of assumptions, right? So our ability to succeed, to hit this point and to feel the way we want to is almost impossible. Maybe we get to the place, which is already unlikely because it's very specific, but we probably won't feel the way that we want to, right? Okay. So the entire value system with goals, traditional goals, for the most part, is in the destination, the ability to get this one thing, to get to this one point in time. But speaking of time, we spend most of our time on the journey on our way to getting there. When we cross the finish line, it is a moment in time. It is a blip. You literally cross the finish line. You get that many followers. You get that much money. But by the time you get there, things have absolutely changed because all of your time is spent on the journey, where you are, where you are, where you are. And the problem is, if the goal is where you want to be versus where you are today, that means that all the time spent between here and there is the place where we don't want to be. A lot of our goals set us up to be dissatisfied with our lives because it's like, until I get this, until I get that, I am not happy. I am not satisfied. But this is where we spend our entire life working towards these goals. That's where we live. That's the space where we live. And that's why I think a lot of us feel so dissatisfied, but we're always waiting for our life to begin by crossing some finish line. And then when we do, what happens next? For me, a lot of traditional goals were self-serving, right? They're a dead end. You get to the goal and then what? You launch the company. Now what? You got the raise. Now what? Now nothing, right? Now you're in a place of uncertainty. Whatever certainty you had through trying to work towards your goal, it's gone the moment you cross the finish line. Your identity is stripped from you. So what do? You set another goal. And this sets us up for being in a place where we don't want to be over and over and over again in our lives, right? We're always looking to the next thing. The next thing will be better. Once I get this, once I do that, I will be happy. And this is our life, right? Is just these tiny goals trying to escape from where we are right now. This is where I find myself. This is where I found myself and in this light and in this moment with Paint a Pick. And it made me think about like, what are actually meaningful goals? And that became a real point of focus for me. So I want to share with you what I think can make goals incredibly useful. Because right now you might be thinking like, why are we setting goals at all? It just sounds like the road to despair. Like this won't be helpful at all. It's the way to make us unhappy. And I think that is true if you set goals as destinations. So let's take a look at setting meaningful goals. I think meaningful goals have to be primarily intrinsic, right? They come from the inside out. They're based on the things you're curious about, the things that you value, the things that you believe, the things that you love. They come from the inside out. They help you engage with things that you care about, the things that you value, connection, family, service, knowledge, whatever it is that lights you up. And I think that is where we begin. That's where we draw the baseline. We have to understand what matters to us, regardless of the goal, right? I think we set a lot of goals to find something that matters to us, but we have things that matter to us when we look. And I think that when we start to build goals on that, everything changes. This is where meaningful goals begin. They align with something that already matters to us, or something that we think matters to us, which is part of what goals can also be useful for. Goals provide us with an experience. It's an expanse of time. And for me, I think what the idea of that experience is to see whether or not it brings us toward the things that matter to us or away from the things that matter to us. Because sometimes it's hard to know, right? We care about something. What do we do with our time? How do we move forward in that direction? How do we become a better parent, a better teacher? How do we serve people better? You set goals. You set goals to see if you can do something, experience something that brings you towards the things that matter to you. In other words, I think that meaningful goals should be framed as experiments, right? Where the goal is a hypothesis. If I do X, will Y happen? And that kind of changes everything, because I feel like before I always approached these things as an equation, right? I do X, I get Y, and that never happened. That just doesn't add up that way. I lose 10 pounds, my life will be perfect. That doesn't work. That's disappointing. But if I try doing this, like I suspect if I try to do this, then this might happen. It's a question. And so the entire experience becomes the test. You are taking action. You are testing this hypothesis. In other words, the goal is there to help you navigate this question. And that's why I like to think about goals as lighthouses. This is the metaphor that I keep coming back to over and over again. And why? Because lighthouses are built to help people navigate uncertainty. It helps people navigate the unknown. And the future is, as we looked at before, unknowable in many ways. You could guess, sure, and some guesses are more accurate than others. But by and large, we use goals to help us move from where we are into the unknown. And I love this idea of lighthouses because they can light our way. They help us navigate. Very rarely in the real world do lighthouses serve as the place that you go to, right? You don't get in the boat and go to the lighthouse. You go to the areas around the lighthouse. As you get closer to land, which is what the lighthouse serves you to do, right? To get there, you start to see the lay of the land. So you can start to see where you actually want to go, what you want to explore. The reason why I love this so much as well is because we talked about this transition, right? From reality to the new reality. When you go from this fantasy to reality, you begin to learn, you begin to see what that reality looks like. And as reality becomes more and more clear to you, you might start to realize that your goal and what actually matters do not align anymore. Right? You start going to the gym so much that you actually injure yourself, or you start losing so much weight that you feel even worse than before. Right? The goal that you set, again, was this huge guess in the dark. And as you start moving towards that, you start to realize that it doesn't align with the thing that you really care about. But when you think of goals as lighthouses, you just simply find another lighthouse and change course. There's nothing keeping you on track here with this goal. The whole point of the lighthouse is to help you navigate, not to help you land there, not to help you get there. It's just to give you a sense of direction. And if it's not aligned with where you want to go, you set another lighthouse and you're immediately aligned again with what matters. The next lighthouse is there to help you see if you can move towards the thing that matters or away. And what's so interesting about this concept to me is that it changes the focus of what goals are entirely. It changes the focus from where I need to be to the destination, which is what traditional goals have, to what matters. The focus is on what matters, regardless of the goal. The goal is just there to help me navigate, but what matters is the value, the things that I care about. And the only way I can figure that out is checking in with where I am now. So where I am becomes the focus, not where I want to be. That means that the journey, the whole process, is the most valuable part of this goal. This is where you learn. This is where you improve your skill. This is where you develop all the things to help you align with what matters to you. The goal is just there to help keep you from getting lost. And this is how you can, I think, is such a more productive and joyful way of navigating your life, because as soon as you get to the lighthouse, it's like, it's just a milestone on a much larger adventure. It's like, okay, so I reached this health goal, but my overall value is to be healthier so I can be around for my kids, or that I have more energy. And these goals are just ways to help me experiment to figure out the best way to do that. And then when I'm done with that, I'm just going to have another goal that serves the same larger purpose. There's not this moment of emptiness at the end, because you know that this is just part of the journey, right? And on that journey is where you want to be. And every time you show up, you succeed. Meeting the goal is just a bonus, but showing up is where you win, right? Success is no longer defined by an outcome. Success is defined by progressing towards what matters. Okay. So why don't we take 10 minutes right now? Actually, let's take 5. How are we doing on time? Let's take 5 minutes and kind of do a quick, like, lightning goals list right now, not overthink it. Let's take 5 minutes, set a timer here, and just list all your goals, big or small, 5 years, 10 minutes, just off the top of your head. Don't overthink it. Just get them out. If you already have a goals list, this is a great time to look at them again. Again, big or small, there's no right and wrong here. We're going to need this because I'm going to show you how you can build your own lighthouses next, but you'll need some material to work with. Try to keep it simple. One sentence. Set goals you're scared to set. Just write it down. Maybe some of these goals were things that you've been pursuing for a long time, a career, a business, a relationship. And they don't even have to be for 2023. If that helps you frame your thinking, what do you want to get done next year? Then by all means, go ahead and do that. It's just brainstorming. There's no right or wrong here. Some of these goals could be things not necessarily that you want, but things that you want to let go of as well. Another 2 minutes. Somebody just asked an interesting question in the chat that I want to address. Somebody asked, what's the difference between a goal and an intention? That's something I'm going to speak about a lot more at a later time, but the difference is, so we have a goal, which is the definition of an outcome. And I think of an intention as a commitment to a process. And usually it's a process that's going to long outlast the goal. Commitment to, for example, the intention can be a commitment to being healthier. There are countless goals that serve that commitment. Okay. Start wrapping up. Okay. Let's keep going here. Okay, so some of you might be asking me, well, great. What's a lighthouse goal? How does this actually work? Sounds good. So I'm going to share with you how I've figured out a way to structure this. It's the timer. Okay. Let's talk about the qualities of a meaningful goal. They are purposeful, they are actionable, they're continuous, and they're trackable. Some of you eagle-eyed people in the productivity space may realize what this is. This is a PACT goal. Some people might be familiar with SMART goals. I find that PACT goals are significantly more aligned with my own experience, specifically because it begins with the big P, purposeful, right? The beginning of the goal is that they serve a larger purpose, something that extends beyond the goal. Secondly, they're actionable. They focus on what you can control. I find that a lot of the goals that I set were usually based on things that I could control in part, but a lot of times couldn't, which led to a lot of frustration, a lot of self-doubt. They're continuous. These are things that we can do on an ongoing basis over and over again to avoid decision fatigue and analysis paralysis, and we can improve them steadily over time. Last but not least, they're trackable. It's important for us to have a way to monitor whether or not we're making progress. So let's break this down. I'm going to take this goal, for example, which is to write a book. What I'd like you to do at this point is to pick one goal that you just wrote down, something that you're really excited about, something that's really important to you. Take a moment and see if you can apply this approach to framing this goal. It'll be helpful. So each one of these parts is a consideration that will help us create this experiment more successfully, to structure this experiment to be more of a lighthouse goal. First is purposeful. Take your top goal and define its larger purpose. For example, my larger purpose to write a book is to become a better storyteller. I think the ability to storytell is instrumental for teaching. People want to be engaged with their teachers. So storytelling is really important to me, and writing to me is a great way to tell better stories. It's one of many different goals I could set to become a better storyteller, but writing a book is good. So my bigger purpose is to become a storyteller. Now, this is an interesting place to start, because if you can't think of a larger purpose behind your goal, then chances are it's a dead end goal. It's like these traditional goals we had talked about before, where you get to the end and then you have no identity left, right? This goal gave you your identity, and as soon as it's over, it's gone. So as you're going through your goals, pick the one where you can understand what the larger purpose of that goal is. One way to think about it is, when you pick the goal that excites you the most, see if you can think of 5 other goals that would support the same larger purpose. That will help you see whether or not it's a dead end goal. So let's take 5 minutes and think about that. Go through that list, see what excites you the most, maybe pick 3, and then try this on for size. This is also great exercise. If something really excites you, if one of your goals really excites you, then this is a great opportunity for the next 4 minutes to simply ponder, what about this excites you? What about learning a new language excites you? Try to connect with yourself here. What inspired this goal? Why do you want to do this thing? What is the thing that happens after you accomplish your goal? There's got to be something, right? Because if not, and if you're just trying to prove something to yourself, why is that? Why do you need to prove something to yourself? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just a good idea to check in with yourself. And if you completed this already, then move to the next thing that's most exciting to you. This approach can be used for any kind of goal, big or small. I like to see if I can state the purpose as succinctly as possible. Like in this case, to become a better storyteller. That's all the purpose that I need. Maybe for you, it's to be a better leader, be a more loving partner, to be a healthier parent. That is the intention. This goal serves that intention. Another minute. See if some of these goals that you set actually align with the same larger purpose. Like, there are a lot of physical goals here. There are a lot of educational goals here. That might help you surface something like an underlying value that you may not be aware of. There are a lot of things that I want to get rid of r- around the same area of my life. That's really helpful. A big part of this is trying to identify patterns. Okay, let's go to the next. Okay, so for your top goal, create a list of the first 5 action steps that are within your control, at least 5. I would urge you to create as many as you can possibly think of, right? We'll organize it later, but think about the actions that are within your control. You don't have to wait for this. You don't have to wait for that. What can you do now to make this real, to prove your hypothesis, either true or false? So if with mine, it's to write. That's something I can control. I can write. I can read more. The best way to become a storyteller is to be inspired by other storytellers. I could take a course. A lot of times when we have these goals, we can't do them because they scare us, they overwhelm us because we don't think about them on a granular level. Start a company can be really exciting, but you don't get started because, like, I don't know how to do that. Of course not. Of course not. But other people do. So maybe we talk with them. Maybe there are courses that we could take. You don't need to know how to do something before you start. You need to know where to begin. When people ask me, where should I begin? Often I just say, okay, begin by figuring out when you're going to work on this. What time are you going to block out on your calendar? Find the time that this is going to take up in your life. Every one of our goals is going to have to fit into our life. We can't magically make room for it. It has to fit somewhere, or something else has to go. So that might be an action step. No more, no more 3 hours of TV afterward. And if you run out of action steps for your top goal, do it for your next one. See how you can prove your hypothesis right or wrong, how you can get into action. Also, think about while you're writing down these action steps, think about how those action steps make you feel. Do they feel like a burden? Remember, this is the space where you're going to be spending all of your time. The goal will be a moment in time. Working towards that goal should be rewarding towards its own for its own end. Every language class should be fun, or at least meaningful. I mean, for example, with health stuff, like I don't necessarily look forward to going to the gym. It's important, but that's a time where I get to, hang out with authors, listen to podcasts, those kind of things. If your goals are very broad, this is a great time to start breaking them apart. So Nancy says, be a photographer. So in this case, what is actionable about being a photographer? When are you going to take pictures? How are you going to learn how to become a photographer? This is the part of actionability that's so important. We're trying to figure out how you're actually going to find purchase on this idea that doesn't exist yet. Actionability is taking something that is super broad and making it very granular. You're defining the steps towards the reality right now. Okay, let's go to the next one. This might help. Continuous. As I'd mentioned before, a lot of achieving our goals requires us to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. And I think that a big problem is that with a lot of our, especially these days, like when you want to like lose weight or you want to learn something, you go online and not only do you not know where to begin, but now you're confused. Which is the best way? Where do I begin? But this person and that person in this class and this discount and analysis paralysis, total overwhelm. What we want to do is we want to figure out a basic thing that we can do repeatedly that we just don't have to reconsider over and over and over again. So for your top goal or your top 3 goals, depending on how much time you have, create a list of repeatable actions that you can use to take towards your purpose. So for my example of wanting to write a book, I want to write 250 words every weekday. That is something that's within my control. It's something that I'm excited about doing. It's probably not going to be fun every day, but yeah, that's going to move me towards it. And I don't have to think about it. All I have to do is write 250 words a day. That's it. That's the baseline. I don't have to take 15 courses or read 45 books. This is just one continuous way I can move towards this thing. Right? And 250, that's 250 words more than it was when I didn't have this goal. And when I realize that 250 words is too easy, I'll change it. That's the beautiful thing about this idea of a lighthouse goal. It's like you start somewhere concrete and you do that and you track it, which will be the next thing, which we'll get into. But yeah, take your top goal and see if you can create a tiny to-do list that you'll just run every day, 3 times a week, whatever it is, whatever makes sense with your goal. So with a photographer, it's like, okay, I will spend 2 hours every weekend taking pictures. I'll spend 30 minutes every day editing photos. Creating a reality is just effort over time. That's all it is. And the less you have to think about all the possible ways of accomplishing this thing, the better. Do the thinking up front and then act and then change when necessary. And some of you already pointed out some of the actionable steps are continuous. So that's great. And that's okay. There can be an overlap here. There's not a bright line between PACT. Okay. Let's take another 3 minutes with that. One way to think of this is like, what is a little program that you can run every day that will help you move towards this goal? It can be a checklist, right? So go to the gym. Here are the 4 exercises I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Here are the 4 exercises I do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, whatever it is. You set it and then you don't have to worry about it. This doesn't lock you into it. It just sets beginning point. That's important. And you'll see why in the next step. So somebody asked about creating a reality. Yes. So action is what creates reality. Action is what turns the fantasy into a reality. It's when an idea becomes real through action. That's literally how we create things. So we want to figure out the actions that will make this hypothesis real. To be a photographer, you need to know how to take pictures. You need to know how to run a company. You need to know how to get paid for taking photos. Those are all considerations that will need to be acted on in order to become a photographer. In my case, with Paint a Pick, I had to work at least an hour or 2 after work every day. That was the continuous thing. I just had a time blocked out after work and I just did that every day. And for 2 years, I did that. And then on the other side, a business came out. That's how a business is born. Okay, let's move on. I do want to leave some time for questions as well. So we'll end with trackability, the T. For your top goal, list 2 or more things you can track that would indicate that you're making meaningful progress. Example is for my writing a book, like the stories written, chapters written, the days that I've written. So I there's a distinction here between trackability and measurability. Some people like to measure the amount of steps they took or, how many words they wrote on a specific day. That can be helpful. I find that can, for me, can be distracting in its own right, but I want to know how often I wrote. I want to know how often I went to the gym, how often I showed up and did the thing. On a very basic level, did I do the thing I say I was going to do or not? So let's take another 4.5 minutes to start with that. This is an interesting way to also think about your goal. If you can't figure out a way to track it, that's a problem because then you won't know if you're making any progress. With traditional goals, I find that a major problem is that we track our progress, but how far away we are from where we want to go. And I think what's much more important is to track the progress away from where we were, from where we started, right? That's really important. And for me, that's what trackability is, to show me how far away I am from where I began. Because that counts. That counts. That's continuous progress. That is movement towards the things that matter to me. And that's the thing that's beautiful about lighthouses. Since I don't have the expectation to reach a certain place, that's not the expectation. The expectation is to show up and to make progress. But in order to know whether or not I'm progressing, I need to have some kind of metric. And if you're done with your main goal, you can try it for the next one and the next one. What's interesting here is when you start doing it for many goals, you start thinking of different ways to track things. It could be time, it could be money, energy, it could be weight, or one other that we'll talk about in a few minutes. When you think about one way to track a certain goal, think of another way to track a certain goal. It's good to have a couple different ways. You should have at least two, because again, we are going towards uncertainty. And how we think we're going to track something might immediately collide with reality. It's like, oh, this actually doesn't really indicate much. So you want to have a couple so you don't have to like start all over again. Another minute. Okay. So, as some of you may have seen, the last thing here in my example is emotions. And this is where my flavor of pact changes. By the way, pact is not my invention. I just find it to align so beautifully with lighthouse goals, specifically when you add this dimension, which is absolutely critical. Now remember, the point of the goal is not to reach the lighthouse. The point of the goal is to move from fantasy to reality. And when we do that, even with a lighthouse goal, even with a pack goal, there is this reality gap that will happen. That's unavoidable because we're moving into a future we don't know. But the difference here is subtle but important. What we're trying to figure out is whether the hypothesis that you stated at the beginning of this experiment is true or false, right? This is where the whole thing changes. Is this goal bringing you towards the life you want to live or away from the life that you want to live? That was a hypothesis from the very beginning. So where you are is an incredibly important place that you want to keep track of, because it doesn't matter if you get to the other side. What matters is whether or not it's helping you to align with what matters to you over and over and over again. And for that, you really need to keep track of what's happening inside of you during this process, during your life, right? On the journey, during the process, use whatever language you like. How are you feeling about this thing that you're doing? Are you still clear as to why it matters? Do you feel that it is aligning with the thing that you hoped it would let you? And this, and this might be the big question a lot of people may have been having. It's like, well, what does it have to do with bullet journaling? Right? It's the whole bullet journal community. For me, this is where the bullet journal fits in perfectly. You use your Bujo practice to keep a record of your experience. Every day you're writing down the things you have to do, the things you don't want to forget, and the things that you experience. And through our rituals, our daily, weekly, monthly rituals, we are reviewing our progress over and over again to keep check about whether our actions are aligned with our beliefs, with our values. And that's one of the reasons why I think journaling is such an important part of reaching our goals. Because if our goals are making us absolutely miserable or leave us feeling empty, then why are they there? Because we should. Why should we do that then? What we want to figure out is why something matters to us and how we can align our actions accordingly. And for me, I think that journaling, specifically bullet journaling, obviously I'm very subjective here, is really critical in that process. Okay. I think now is a good time for questions. Stop this. Karen, I see you.
Oh, hi there. Um,
Hi.
what do you recommend with this process if you start with what you value? Like, I think there was also someone in the chat I picked up think like to be calmer. And like for me, one of my big things was like, I really need to be content. And I started identifying a couple of areas that cause where I really struggle with this. So like how might I do this process that you just didn't engage today with, starting with something that I value or aspire, to be?
Have you ever experienced what you want to have? What you want to experience?
Like let's just go with contentment, right? Have I ever experienced contentment? Yes.
Okay.
But not all. Yes.
Yeah. So what were you doing that led to that experience?
I accepted, I think, myself in a way. I accepted my abilities, I guess. I'm thinking of something very specific, like for example, in my ability to write, I research and produce a lot of articles, and I always struggle with like, do I have enough? Does it say like I'm never content with my work, and I will drive myself crazy there sometimes. So, with it, and I just need to stop being that because it's counterproductive to uh my being and stuff like that. So your question back was to me, have
What
I experienced? experience contentment in it.
What
Not
action
that
did you take? What were you doing that allowed you to experience contentment?
was I doing. Maybe even doing maybe some talk that um like some self-talk that like I am knowledgeable. I do have capacity to do this. And then in particular, like when it is writing, when I have been content with it, I think if I like develop an outline and like develop myself some clear boundaries that help me not to wander and be discontent. So
So what I'm hearing is when you do have boundaries and you do structure your project in a certain way, it's much more likely that you will feel content. Did I get that?
yeah, I think so. That captures that. I couldn't articulate that, but thank you. That captures that. Mhm.
Sure. Uh,
Mm.
What I'm hearing you say is that a goal would be for you to create or to feel a certain way. And what's amazing is that I'm hearing that you already have found or experienced circumstances that allow that to happen. So for me with PACT, it would be to figure out a way to maybe create that structure that you can apply on a continuous basis, right? The purpose
Yeah.
for you, it sounds to me that the writing is important to you, but it also sounds like maybe speaking is important to you. So the action item is how could you do these things in a continuous way that would allow you to also experience contentment?
Okay. Okay. That helps. Thank you.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you for your question. Okay. Jennifer?
Hello.
Hi.
Um, one question that came up for me as I was going through the activity here is that I had my continuous repeatable actions. And then immediately when you asked us to list the trackable things, I basically just started thinking, well, I just have to track how often I did the repeatable actions, right? I'm thinking to myself. So is that so? Or like what is your response to that kind of thinking? Like, should it be something different somehow?
Do you think that the actions that you're tracking would be a good indicator of progress towards what you want?
Yes.
That's really
Oh,
what
fine.
that's what you're going for. That's all, right? Sometimes the actions are the plan, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
that the delineation here is that sometimes you have to do a whole bunch of things that you can't repeat, so it's really hard to track. But if you do have a bunch of things that you have to repeat over and over again, and they do have some kind of measurable effect, then that lends itself really elegantly. So that
Okay.
sounds like you find yourself in a real sweet spot.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Debbie?
Hi, Ryder, and everyone. I just have a question. So, my something that really excites me is I want to work in a specific area of health. So, I'm a doctor, but I'm a training GP or family medicine, and I know that completing that will ultimately give me the goal of working in that specific metabolic health. But my current trajectory of achieving that is just I just have anxiety around achieving all the exams and things like that. And while doing this process, I discovered that can I make it that can I get to that end goal with um, going another way without completing this current training? And so, would you see one of the goals as being able to make the decision to not continue on that path, doing the research, so that could be steps I could do to achieve my goal another way? Is that what this sort of process is meant to raise in us? If that makes sense.
Why do you want to study or have a career in that specific area of medicine?
Um, I've always wanted to be a family doctor. So, where the mother comes, the children come, the grandparents come, and be a part of people's lives, not just the 10-minute consult. So that's always something. And I've been on this journey now for 15 years. So it's like commitment to that journey, right? But I'm starting to recognize that my current training, the GP, I don't want to work in that fast medicine still, but I'm got more excited about metabolic health. So providing that same sort of service, so not the 10-minute consult, but for people who are struggling with diabetes and all of that stuff. So it's sort of narrowed what I want to do, if that makes sense.
I am by no means a doctor, so I can only, I can do the best that I have with the information that I
No,
have.
that's right.
I'm not-
So family medicine covers, your lifespan, whereas the metabolic health is very narrow within that field.
I
It's
guess,
like that excites me more.
is there any other way to serve the health of families that would not require this training?
Yeah. So is that sort of as we do this process of looking at lighthouse goals, it's like, that's where I was heading, but now I feel like so I need to do the research to see if I can change that direction. Is that sort of what this is supposed to stimulate, those questions?
I think it's kind of beyond just, to me, what I'm hearing is a service to families, right? And right now you are within the realm of medicine, and maybe there is only one track, but I'm also hearing that that's not necessarily clear either. So
Mm.
let's say you research this and you realize that there's actually no other capacity that you could have to achieve the same goal. So maybe what that would do is actually inspire you more to take the time that is needed to reach that place. But I think a lot of times,
Yeah, I'm literally 8 months away. So it's like, do I just continue this track or, yeah. So is that what these questions are supposed to raise in us, I suppose, is to sort of highlight, we want to go in one direction, but discover that maybe that direction, like it's 15 years versus, 8 months finishing. So it's like, I've been doing this for 15 years.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think for me, the exercises are there to help you really deeply connect with why you're doing what you're doing.
Okay. Yeah.
Sometimes
I see
you
that.
can't. And sometimes you realize that like, oh, this is why I'm doing this. I've been so caught up in all the like bureaucracy or, the testing or the schooling. I forgot. It's like, I really want to be a family doctor, or I just really want to be around families. I think it's important for us to check in with ourselves to like really make sure that we're excited about the potential of what will happen. Not just take it for granted, like, okay, I started this thing 15 years ago and, I'm almost there. Right.
Yeah. 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 No, thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hope that was helpful. All right. Do we have another question? I'm happy to answer a couple more. I know that we're over.
Yeah. Yeah. Christopher had asked earlier, it's a distinction between, planning and actually putting things into action. And any tips on how to maintain that kind of motivation to continue those continuous actions each day, each week to get us closer to our goals?
For me, it's a great question. It's a hard one, right? But for me, the only thing I can really offer there is two pieces, right? One is that you create these continuous actions at a sustainable level. I think that our motivation at the beginning of something is much higher than it will level out to be. So the classic example is the gym. Somebody's like, I'm out of shape. I'm going to change my life. They go to the gym, 14 times in a row, and then they're completely exhausted, burnt out, or injured. And that's the end of that. So if you're going to try to create something that's continuous, you have to think about the sustainability of that over time. So if it's getting into shape, it's like, well, maybe you train 10 minutes 3 times a week at first, right? Set the bar so low that you'll actually do it. Like, this should not be agony. Remember, we're spending most of our life in this space, in this continuous space. So there's one. Make it actionable. So actionable, part of actionability is that it is doable. And that's why I like actionable and continuous. It's doable over and over again. It's doable over and over again. And then the last part, which is kind of beyond the whole pact thing, is the rituals of reflection, to check in with yourself, to remind yourself why you're doing this thing that might be hard. And sometimes that's all that it takes. You're like, okay, fine. I'm doing this for my kids. I really don't like not eating all these fun things, but if I keep doing that, I'm not going to be around for them. Right. And it's just like that reality check and just reminding yourself of that. Or you realize, during one of those reflections, like, wait, actually the way that I'm approaching this is not working. This is not sustainable. It's not working. So then you have the ability to adjust it to align with what you learn along the way. I think that continuous does not mean that you're locked into something for the rest of time or until you happen to meet your goal or not. Continuous just means that your ability to show up for something over and over again that helps you make progress. So if it helps you keep making progress, then hopefully the motivation will keep being there, especially if you keep reminding yourself of why you're doing this. And if you keep reminding yourself why you're doing this and you realize that the progress isn't really there, then you can change. And then you'll have the novelty of that. I hope that's helpful. And during your reflection, if you realize that this doesn't matter to you anymore, then that's something important to know. People change, circumstances change. Is it hard or is it just not meaningful? That's very different. Those are very different challenges. Okay, we have some more questions. I'll do 2 more.
Yeah, Nestor. Did I pronounce your name correctly? Feel free to unmute and ask your question.
Yes, it is. That's how you pronounce my name. Hi, everybody. This was very enlightening. I was asked in a reading club a while ago if I liked what I did or what I was doing, like referring to my profession or what I was dedicated to. And my answer was, well, I do what I like, which is different. And I choose to do what I enjoy. The question came about the confusion that there is about projects and processes. And I think that this validates pretty much what you have been showing us, that you are emerging the real meaning of life, which is not actually a project, but the process of living day to day and trying to understand what really matters. And in that sense, I think that most of us are challenged by trying to find meaning in larger things, in bigger things. While it is easy to find it in the little ones, like doing the chores, swimming, reading, small things, short things. For me, it is about contemplating sunrises and sunsets, to watching my kids smile. And I put things into perspective, and that's where my actual conflict comes. And the question that I have for you is, sometimes we need to build something so that we can go to the next level. And in that level, now there's a commitment to maintain. And that seems to bring the issue of, well, I built it, now I have to maintain it because now nobody else has my dream. And I will have to keep it on. Like having a house, like building some sort of project that your kids are not going to maintain, like a business. So when you reach that point, you are at that bifurcation in the road. You're trying to decide whether you're going to be the one maintaining it. And if it's keeping you from enjoying it anymore, you're afraid to leave it behind. The fallacy of the sunken cost. So my question is, when you meet that point, when you arrive at that point and the bifurcation comes, there's not another light post. You have to invent it. How do you prevent from repeating the history again?
That's a wonderful question. Ooh. I think what comes up for me is that things change. The constant thing is change. So there comes a point where you realize that something that mattered to you no longer does. And I think that's always hard. That's difficult. So is keeping something alive that you don't care about more important than breathing life into something that you do? So that's the choice that's there. Or is this project that you have just grown to a place where you have a lot of responsibilities that's making it super unpleasant? This is my case. I love this job. I get to do this every day. And there are countless things that I hate about what I do. Like I really do. And the way that I fix it, and I've gone to the point multiple times where I'm like, I should just like, I just gotta not do this anymore. This is taking more energy from me than it's giving me. And the solution to that was finding people to take those things on. Like the reason I didn't like doing things, because that's not what I do. I don't know how to do that. And I'm spending all this time doing something that's draining me of energy. So a big part of this, and I know this is not very philosophical, is like delegation. What about this is now no longer fun for me? Why is this taking away energy from me? So there's the difference between, okay, it's gotten to a point where it needs more people. So and I'm wearing all the hats, which means that the thing that gave me meaning is something I could. The problem for me was I didn't get to create things. I created this business so I could create things to help people. And I was spending most of my time filling out shipping manifests, or dealing with customer service stuff. I love my customers, but I don't know where the book went missing 2 weeks ago, and that was where my time went. So I started bringing on people that allowed me to spend time with what I did care about. And all of a sudden, oh my God, I get to go to work again. I think that if I spent time, if I was in a place where I was doing the thing that I loved the most and it felt meaningless, that's when the choice becomes different. So I feel like that's kind of the considerations at hand. Is something that was once meaningful now meaningless, or is something that was once meaningful now just too complicated and you don't get to work on that anymore?
So as soon as the backpack is too heavy, you try to offload some of the rocks and reevaluate, recalibrate every single time you feel like that for a prolonged couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of months, when it's really weighing you down, right?
Yeah. I mean, what are you carrying those rocks up for, right? It's like, are you still trying to build that thing? And if you're not, then all this work that you're doing is pointless. Like you might have built half of it and you're like, well, I have to finish it now. It's like, no, you don't. You don't have to do anything.
Leave it behind.
You have to take care of your life. I think that's important. What is the life that you want? That's the choice you get to make. You get to move towards that or away from that. That's the choice at any time.
So the evaluation is this still the life that I want? Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful question. I'm going to keep on noodling on that one.
Sylvia, what about you?
Thank you. These are all great questions. And thank you so much, Ryder, for this. I think we're in a time when a lot of people are reassessing where they are. And so this is really, really relevant to our era in particular. So my question actually aligns pretty well with some of the arc of what's been happening here. So if we're in a big arc of transition and we find out that something isn't working anymore for us, and we have this dream and this vision of how to get closer to that, we still have a lot of stuff to do in our old life that we kind of have to get out of the way and done. So,
So I'm thinking about how to use goals for that, because they're not necessarily goals to be really like, oh, yay, but in terms of that, I still need a goal around it so I can free up this energy, which I might actually be procrastinating and dragging because it doesn't feel good. So I think part of what I wonder is, I guess for me, it's trying to find ways that like harm reduction a little bit, and ways to um, make them fit as well as I can, make those areas fit as well as I can, knowing that they overall don't fit. And I don't actually have a deep commitment to the big picture anymore, but trying to figure out like smaller level things that match my intentions and my values. But yeah, anyway, so that is my question, is how do we work with those kinds of goals?
Thank you for your question. Let me make sure that I got that. What I'm hearing you say is, how do you use goals to get rid of the things that are getting in the way of your goals? Is that accurate?
Yeah. And to maybe like, because it may take a longer time to transition out, like a major career transition or things like that.
Yeah. The answer is to set goals,
Yeah.
at least for me. So for me, actually piggybacking on the answer that I just gave, for me, the goal was to find people to take things off my plate so I could show up for what I'm best suited for, that I would like to believe that I can serve best at. But in order to do that, I couldn't just not do the other things. So the goal actually became getting rid of this requirement that's blocking me. And that, to me, required a goal. That's a whole project onto itself. And the hypothesis there is like, okay, if I hire this person, then I don't have to do these things anymore. So in order to prove that true or false, I'm going to have to figure that out. I'm going to have to take action there. So then all of a sudden, the purpose of this goal is to find somebody to take this off my plate. That's so I can do what I do. That's the overarching purpose. I always want to show up as best I can. Right. The action there is, okay, I'm going to have to create a job description. I'm going to have to post this. Right. And then continuous is I'm going to have to check that. I'm going to have to interview people, and trackable. It's like, okay, how many people have interviewed for this thing? So that you can use the goal in order to get rid of entire parts of your life. Selling your house, ending a relationship, dealing with some kind of medical condition. Like, these are not all of these goals are about things that make you happy. I think this is a really critical distinction that I didn't make earlier, and I'm sorry I didn't for those that left. The goal isn't to be happy. The goal is to spend more time with what matters. That there's a very big difference, because happiness is transient, right? Happiness is an emotion. It comes and goes. You're happy, then you're not happy. Setting a goal to be happy is an exercise in disappointment. That just won't happen. Even if you get there and you're like, oh, this is great, that will go away. What you want to do is try to spend as much time as possible with what is meaningful to you. And sometimes the goal is to remove things that are preventing you from doing that. And then that goal itself becomes meaningful. I'm doing this terrible job interview process, right? Which is something I don't care about, but it's like, it's going to enable me to do this other thing. So all of a sudden, this is actually meaningful. And the more effective I do this, the more progress I make, then the more I get what I want. So it becomes meaningful.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
That makes sense, because my goal has never been especially to be happy, but I was thinking about how we need goals that we're excited about. And I think I realized that the excitement is in the potential to free up, right? Like, that's what makes the goal meaningful and exciting. Like, that's how I connect with it. Not like, oh man, I gotta like finish grading all these papers for the like by the end of the year, which is energy destroying and all of that. But it's to just go, wow, when I get this out of the way, then, like, let me get this out of the way so I can spend my time on the other things. Yeah.
Completely different
Free
energy. Even when you're just saying that, it went from this to like, oh, I get to do this because it allows me to do that. And in general, like that's
okay. Yeah, that's what was helpful, because I was thinking about what you said about like being really like feeling excitement about your goals and going, yeah, those have to be goals, but it's hard to feel excited about them. But now I see it. So thank you so much.
absolutely. There's a lot of excitement is usually confused with joy, but it can also be meaningful, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of heavy things in life where they're really meaningful and you're excited that you get that opportunity, but it's not necessarily a happy or joyful thing. But it matters. So it's not something that I see talked about often in this space. Like meaningful things outlast happy things every time.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for your question. All right. One more. Okay.
We've got Lisa.
All right.
I'll just make a comment. This exercise was amazing because the first two goals that I wrote down when we went through the purposeful section of the exercise, I realized that they were actually tied to something that should be an intention. It was sort of like it latent, buried someplace, but the exercise got me to define that intention. And it's now like in my mind, I actually understand why these other goals are there to begin with.
That is the best possible feedback I could get. That's the testimonial. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. Well, I think that we've gone quite a bit over, but this is a topic that I could talk about forever. And as a matter of fact, I will be doing a lot more talking about this in a new program we'll be rolling out later next year, but this is what it's all about. So thank you everyone for taking the time. Jessica, is there anything that I'm missing?
No, I think that this is one of those practices that we maybe take and keep revisiting. And so feel free to revisit the replay that's available until the end of the year. There's some really big stuff in here. So if you need to verbally process with someone, maybe find a partner or something to talk through some things, and it might clarify even more. But we will not be doing a plan with us at the end of this month because we are going to close up shop for the second half of December, looking to live out our value of rest. And so we will be sending out the yearly ritual from last year that you can tune into to have, some friends alongside you playing on a YouTube video to get your 2023 set up. But we've got some really exciting things cooking up for you in 2023. So if you enjoyed this, I hope that you join us again next year.
Thank you everyone for taking the time to be with us here today and being with us in Bujo U. We will still, for those of you who are new here, Bujo U is going through a transition right now, which you may have seen. So I just want to give a heads up there. We are still tweaking some things and getting some things online. Pardon the dust, but thank you for bearing with us and your patience, and we'll see you back at Bujo U.